not only does she have such an amazing story, but then during our break, she's talking about our kids and how much of a crisis they're in, and it starts in utero pretty much. So we had to stop you and say, wait, let's record this. So tell everyone watching what you were telling me about when it starts and how it develops and how this has become a health crisis.
Right. So the same infection that gave me the MS, it's really affecting our youngest children, the very young ones, even under the age of 1. What we're finding, I should backtrack. I've been a teacher with the school district for about 12 years, and I've also been on the Healthy Schools Committee. So I really see the state of health in our children. I've also been a coach for 15 years, working with a lot of clients, families, and children. And it breaks my heart because we're seeing an epidemic of poor health in our kids. It's really a crisis out there. The experts are now saying that there are many parents that are going to outlive their kids. And if we just look at autism, the rates have been doubling every 5 to 6 years. When we look back, 5 to 6 years ago, it was 1 in 165 kids. Then it was 1 in 88 kids. And the latest statistic is 1 in 50 kids. That just came out just very recently.
Wow.
This is not acceptable, and we can't just keep researching this topic. We need to give young ladies, before they want to have families, we have to give them this information so that they can greatly reduce the risk of disease in their kids. What I have seen, and other researchers, this is coming out in Science. I have lots of great resources, so you can see it's not just Pam's opinion. But we're finding that the young moms now have such a high level of dysbiosis in the birth canal. And dysbiosis just means you're out of balance. You have too many bad microbes and not enough good microbes. So a lot of yeast and other microbes. When the child passes through the birth canal, that's their opportunity to pick up the life-promoting bacteria that acts as their natural defense in their GI tract. And then it populates the GI tract and it makes them healthy. There are so many ways that it is life-promoting for us. But instead, these children are passing through the birth canal, picking up a lot of yeast and other bad microbes. The child starts to become fussy very soon after birth. If the mother nurses the child for a very long time, for a year if possible, the mom will pass on immune properties through her breast milk, and it will give that child a way to deal with that infection. And then we find that they kind of surpass all of these problems that we're seeing with the health. But most often women can't or don't choose not to for whatever reason. And as soon as they start going on the formula, we're noticing that they're not getting the immune properties, and that's when the children are starting to develop things like ear infections, chest infections, bladder infections. Because the children are not digesting the formula, those infections in the GI tract are the yeast and other microbes they picked up at birth. And so as those infections become a little stronger, they produce a lot of poisons which directly suppress their immune system. That's why they're more susceptible to all these chest infections, ear infections, bladder infections. We put them on more antibiotics to deal with those infections. And very often it's repeated, and then we put tubes in their ears. And it appears that the more often we're putting them on antibiotics, like we are totally destroying any kind of natural defense that they could have had. It doesn't affect yeast. The antibiotics don't affect yeast or many other microbes that are bad, that are disease causing. So what science is showing is that some of these poisons produced by these infections are so strong that they are they're going through the blood, they're crossing the blood-brain barrier, and they're literally altering the brain development of these children.
Wow.
So as a coach, what I'm seeing is that in a lot of families they're eating right, they're healthy, but the moms are passing on this dysbiosis, which is most often. The children are either going down the roads of eczema, then allergies, then asthma, then the anaphylactic reactions, or they're going down the road of they're developing the learning and behavioral disorders, or it's a combination of both. And this is totally preventable because, number one, if a mom has dysbiosis and she knows it, and that's where we teach them, and Doug is a great teacher of this also, then she can do certain things to be proactive before she even gets pregnant, to build her immune system up, to get these bad microbes down, to get the good microbes back in balance, and then she can have healthy kids. And also she'll understand the importance of nursing. And if your child is a little fussy or what, you understand what that means. It's no longer, why is my child screaming all the time? It's because they've got gas pains and they're uncomfortable from the yeast or whatever. So education is so important, because if I had known then, like before I was diagnosed with MS, if I had known this information, I never would have had MS.
What do doctors think, like, just going back to, you gave the example of autism.
Right.
What does the medical establishment attribute the rise to autism to? Like, what do they think it is?
They don't know what it is. It's really unfortunate. I just had a young lady that she's 25 years old. She was just diagnosed with autism. She's gone all these years without knowing, and she went through school. You know, they thought she was lazy, thought she was stubborn, and she will never be able to work. They finally gave her a diagnosis, and they said it was genetics. And I think that's outrageous, because 1 in 50 kids, it's genetics. It's been increasing. The really honest progressive doctors are saying it's environmental. It's something in the child's environment. And science is showing us there's a really good documentary online. It's called The Autism Enigma by Dr. David Suzuki. They show how the chemicals that are produced by these infections in the GI tract, how they affect even animal rats. It makes them go completely autistic. So we're seeing that this whole field of probiotics I believe that this is most research is going into the field of probiotics. And that's why, because all of our digestive tracts are messed up from all the overuse of antibiotics.